Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market.
Hey, good morning, David, and good morning, Teresa. It's lovely to see you. I'm not often on this podcast, but it's great to be up and about in the morning at 9 a.m. and recording this session for David Gorski. So we will be talking about title insurance today. Teresa is the guru for title insurance, and David Korman, our lawyer partner, will obviously put insight into the subject as well.
Well,
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And it's a real honor for me to be on with the two of you. We miss David Gorski not being with us today, but Sabiha has more than ably subbed in from on a few other occasions, and she's fabulous on these things. So it's great to have you on this, Sabiha, and a real treat for us to have Teresa on with us today from First Canadian Title Insurance. And maybe Teresa will let you explain a little bit of your background and how long we've known each other, and how big a part of our law firm you've been with all of your support over the years.
Well, thank you. Thanks, David. Yes, I am a business development manager at First Canadian Title. We are one of the leading title insurance companies in Canada. We have been doing this for about 30 years now. It's hard to believe so much time has passed. I've had the privilege of working at FCT for 23 years. And over the years, we've seen real estate deals, evolve so much, but we pride ourselves on the ability to help close real estate transactions and work with lawyers to help them when they need to insure their clients to make sure that nothing goes wrong during that transaction. And with Kormans and David, I've had the privilege of working with him for about 20 years now. We've seen some crazy deals go through our offices. We've managed to get through some different, trials and tribulations, but we've come out on top. And I think it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to many more years to go.
I have a bit of an interesting story that I want to share with both of you. And David's law firm was the one that was representing me in an investment property that I purchased. It was a brand new property in 2017, March 30th, that closed. And I had, obviously, they got me title insurance for at the time of the closing. And we had air conditioning, furnace, and all components. I always add all components of the HVAC included. And when we arrived at the property, the AC was missing, number one, and then we found out 3 or 4 months later that the tenant was receiving a bill for rental equipment. On the furnace. There was air coil or whatever that was rented out for $180 a month, which we weren't advised about at all. I bought it after closing of the property, but it was a new build.
Oh.
So we were able to get Jonathan was representing me, David, and he was able to get the title insurance to push for the seller to pay off, all the equipment, which was great.
Yeah. And so that's a good news story. And it happens all the time, right? As a buyer, you're buying something, the lawyer is doing their best to get all the information available to them at that time of closing. So they do some searches, some title searches, some off title searches, but sometimes those problems aren't revealed until after closing. And then, as a buyer, you could be devastated by additional costs that are incurred as a result. And so we look to the title insurance policy to see if there's any coverage. And in this case, it seems like there was some information that wasn't provided to you, to the lawyer up front, and therefore you were able to make a claim and we were able to help you out there. So we like those stories. It happens all the time. There's lots of coverage under the policy.
Yeah, well, just maybe to give the viewers and listeners a little bit of historical background, because I was around practicing law before title insurance came in. So the lawyers used to have to do more searches than we currently do, like especially with municipality, with checking, make sure that if there's any outstanding work orders, any open building permits, the property taxes are paid, those type of searches. And then title insurance came along and said, don't bother doing those searches. We'll provide you coverage for that. You don't have to pay the city to get information for that. And if an issue comes up, we'll cover you for those type of issues. And I remember, I don't know, it was 1990, 1991. I'm practicing downtown, mostly in a commercial law firm. We do very little residential. And a guy, maybe Teresa, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Ed Frikowiak.
Yeah.
Comes in and he says, "Hi, I'm with this company, First Canadian Title, and we're gonna, we're bringing title insurance." And he does a whole presentation to us. And I'm sitting there with a bunch of my partners, and he leaves me and I'm going, like, no, this isn't going to happen. Like, there's no way. There's no way this is going to happen in Ontario. This isn't the way we're going to go. And sure enough, they made inroads. And you were the first one, if I remember.
We were the first, and it was about 1991 when title insurance came to Canada. So title insurance was popular in the US for many, many years. It is a bit of a different concept, the way we practice it in Canada. But yes, you know what, we realized a long time ago that closing a real estate transaction was pretty antiquated, right? You would get the deal, you would have to wait for weeks to get all these off-title searches back from the different municipal offices. I worked in a law office that many years ago, and we'd write away to them. And, it was like at the time of fax machines, and we'd fax them and we wouldn't get responses for weeks on end. And so we came to realize that there is a better way of doing it. We still require the lawyer to do a lot of searches, right? Some title searches, make sure that everything looks good. But we also found an opportunity to alleviate some of those off-title searches. Not only were they timely and costly to the clients, because typically, the city or the municipality could charge up to $50 or $75 for that search and take 2 or 3 weeks to do it. But we were also finding is that sometimes we receive those, results back, and they would have errors. And the city would always put, or the municipality at the bottom of their results, room for, for errors and omissions. So ultimately, you're still on the hook. So rather than go through that tedious process, we've given lawyers a bunch of search guidelines. We tell them this type of property, do these searches, or don't do these searches. And we have the ability to cover some stuff that would have otherwise been revealed on an accurate off-title search.
Teresa, what exactly is covered in title search? And this might be a very open-ended question, but just roughly, if you can, because a lot of times people just associate it with actually the ownership part of it. I'm putting 35, 40, 50% down the line. I'm going to put down X amount of dollars towards it. And so the title should be insured. But I would really want the viewers to find out what else is covered, because there is tons and tons that's covered under title insurance for a very nominal amount of money that they might be spending at the time of closing.
That is absolutely correct. So to begin, just to touch on that, yes, we issue the policy for a one-time premium when you buy your home. Mm-hmm. So the lawyer will make the arrangements to get you a title insurance policy on your behalf when you're buying. And the title insurance policy covers an array of different problems that could come up. So some of the if I have to list maybe the top 3 or 4 covered risks, I would say to begin, it would be survey coverage, right? Before title insurance was introduced in Canada, lawyers would have to have an up-to-date survey. If the client didn't have an up-to-date survey, it would have to be conducted. And we know that again, is timely and very expensive, probably to the tune of thousands of dollars today. With our survey coverage, you do not need that. And if a problem arises after closing that would have been revealed on an up-to-date survey, then we will cover it.
And that usually happens because if they're not getting a survey at that time, but sometimes one of their neighbors on one of the side or another at some point might get a survey, and they might find out there's a problem between the neighbors that's shown on their survey. So at that point, it goes back, and the title insurance company will cover that issue, pay for all the costs and expenses of cleaning up that issue. Or if the actual homeowner decides to get a survey, because let's say they want to do some landscaping or renovation or an addition, and they just get a survey years after they've they've owned the property, and all of a sudden it shows there's a problem. Again, they go back to title insurance to get that type of protection and coverage.
Yeah, and to expand on survey coverage, right? David, you said it best. Sometimes it's revealed unbeknownst to you. You know, you move into your house, you think you have this fabulous 2-car garage, only to find a few years later that, it's encroaching onto your neighbor's lot. So it needs to be fixed. And that's when we step in and we rectify the problem. All the costs incurred in doing that are on us. I will note that the one thing that is not covered under survey coverage is fences and retaining walls, right? So probably most homes aren't, 100% correct with their fence or their retaining wall. And so that wouldn't be covered, but anything else, a previous owner built a deck or a shed or what have you, if there's a problem with it, we step in, which is comforting. Another great coverage under the title insurance policy are, we mentioned them briefly, errors with, outstanding municipal issues like work orders or open permits. People are buying homes. And when you buy your home, you're ultimately buying what the previous owner did to that home or numerous previous owners, right? We see in today's market, homes are being transferred time and time again. People are coming in and out of homes, upgrading or downsizing. And so you're ultimately inheriting all the things that came with that property. With title insurance, if there was, let's say, an open permit, or if there was a lien put, let's say a construction lien by a previous, when the previous owner owned the property, then we would be on the hook for that. So ultimately, what we're saying is you're going to have good and valid title to your property the way you expect it to have title. Anything that is revealed after that was created previously, we are on the hook for.
Yes, one of the things that makes it interesting in a title insurance world now is like when you're buying a property, a lot of times the homeowner is better off not knowing if there's certain problems with it. Like, for example, let's say there's a deck. They buy a house and they've got this beautiful deck in the backyard and they love the deck. That's going to be a real important feature for them. And that's where they're going, it's great living space and they love it. But we don't know if that deck was built with permits, if it was built properly, if it encroaches in a neighbor's property, if it complies with setbacks. So pre-title insurance, we would be doing making those inquiries with the city to find that out. If it turns out there was a problem, then then maybe the deck has to be torn down, or or part of it has to be rebuilt. And maybe it's an issue the seller has to fix for closing. It creates those type of issues. Now we're better off not knowing because they really want the deck. They don't want it ripped down. They want to leave it. So they can just go and use it. And at some point, if the city were to happen to come by and say, oh, it encroaches or it wasn't built properly, then something would have to be done, but it'll be the title insurer that'll do it. But in the meantime, people really want the deck. So we're better off not knowing about if it was built lawfully or not.
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. A lot of times nothing comes to fruition, right? We don't find out about it. It doesn't cause a problem. There's no grief. But if there is, then you look to us and people say, well, how do you handle a problem like that? What do you do? And I will say every case is different. There are times when we have no choice but to remove the deck, right? It's a huge deck. You love the deck. It was 30 feet across, and now we have to make it 20 feet so that it doesn't encroach onto the neighbor's lot. We come in and we do that. We build a new deck that is compliant, that you won't get in trouble for. And also what's interesting under that coverage is there is also coverage for a diminution in value. It's a tough word, diminution in value, but arguably that new homeowner might say, well, when I bought the house, I bought it with a 30-foot deck, wanting to enjoy a 30-foot deck. And I paid a little bit extra than the other house down the street that was for sale that had a 20-foot deck. And then title insurance will look to see if we can offer coverage under that. So to say, well, yeah, we recognize that you're getting a smaller deck and, to recoup some of your losses, we will give you a monetary payout for the difference, right? It's maybe we'll come to an agreement that it's a $10,000 difference, and we might not only fix the deck, save you from having problems with the city going forward, but maybe even pay for a loss that you suffered by enjoying your deck.
Right. So these are the exteriors. So would it be also safe to say that whatever's included in the agreement of purchase and sale inside the house would also be covered with title insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. If there was a work order or something against some renovations done within the home, the same would apply. Again, let me just, there are some caveats to this protection. The homeowner policy is typically for a single family dwelling, right? So we encourage lawyers like David, and David is aware, if you know that there is a basement apartment or if there's reference in the agreement of purchase and sale to additional unit or an in-law suite, we encourage them to do some additional off-title searches that they wouldn't otherwise have to do, because under the policy, we're only insuring for that single family. So any work orders or, or problems that arise from a second living unit would not be covered. But that, that's not very common, but that's the one time you would consider that, but most definitely even for inside. And then the other thing we have to also consider is you are inheriting these problems as a homeowner. If you created the problems, then we are not on the hook, then you are, right? Ultimately, it is about when you took title to your property, any issues that have come up as a result of somebody else's or some other, things that happened prior to your ownership. And then lastly, I probably, if I have to talk about title insurance, probably the most interesting coverage that people love to talk about is fraud coverage. So we know that we live in a beautiful society of a lot of great people, but every so often we run into someone who is an opportunist, to say the least, and they look at real estate or at properties as an opportunity to, to fraud or to defraud or steal from somebody. We know that people use fake ID or fraudulent identity to transfer title to a name or put a mortgage on a property, which can be devastating as a homeowner, right? And so what I really like about our fraud coverage is not only does it apply to any fraud that occurred prior to your ownership, right? So if the person who's selling the home to you is not the actual rightful owner, you are protected, but even post policy. So for example, I'm living in my home today. I've been here for 14 years. And I have title insurance, obviously, if somebody were to commit fraud against me, claim to be me, and put a mortgage against my property, if I didn't have title insurance, I would be on the hook to fight in court to say that I am not that person who put that mortgage on the property. But in the case of title insurance, we step in and we provide coverage and we fight that case and make sure that your ownership in your property remains whole.
And that's really, really important coverage. That's probably the best known of the coverages that you do, because the examples when when something happens, like it's so horrific. And a lot of times, we see that, and I know, Teresa, you have, the fraudsters, are very clever. They're always, they're trying to be one step ahead of the title insurance companies and the police and everybody else. But they'll target properties a lot of times that have no mortgages on them, or become big targets because they do title searches, because anybody can search, randomly to search someone's title. And they target elderly people a lot of times too. And they say, okay, here's a property, it's no mortgage on it. They steal some identity. They create fake identity, which isn't that hard to do right now. They go to a lender, apply for a mortgage, they get a mortgage, and they put a mortgage on a property that's mortgage free. And they just, the money gets advanced to them, and goodbye, they're gone. And sometimes it's quite a bit of time goes by until the homeowner actually realizes there's a mortgage on their property. And sometimes not till they're going to sell, because we're not typically searching title to our own properties every day to see if someone registered something. And all of a sudden you go to sell your property and there's a mortgage sitting on it. And you go, what's this? Right. And now the bank goes, oh, you can't sell your property without paying off your mortgage. Right. But it wasn't their mortgage.
You're like, I didn't have a mortgage.
So, but they bought a title insurance policy 20 years before that, and that they'll have coverage for that.
Yeah.
Through their policy.
Yeah. And honestly, we've seen so many cases, and they're horrific stories. And we share them often. And what we're finding is, in the past, when I was first, speaking about fraud coverage, people would suggest, oh, maybe I should put a line of credit against my home, a secure line of credit, so that if this fraudster does a title search and they see this line of credit, they'll be discouraged from committing fraud against my property. And even that, these fraudsters have become quite good at their job. And a lot of times we find today that they're happy to go in second position. If there's lots of equity in your home, and most of us have more equity today than we did a few years ago, because the value of our homes has increased so much, they'll go in second position happily against your first mortgage or first line of credit for $300,000 and put an extra $300,000. It's not a bad day when you're frauding the bank out of $300,000, right? And so I think putting that line of credit against your home or having a mortgage could be a slight deterrent, but ultimately, these guys are really good at doing what they do.
So I have a question I think maybe David, you brought up the point that they are targeting elderly people because obviously they're assuming they've been in the house for 40, 50 years. You can very easily see how long a person has stayed in their house. They think, okay, this person has already paid it off. So when did title insurance actually become commonly used? And do you think there's people that have gone back and actually gotten title insurance on properties that they've owned over that period of time? Because we're still seeing a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I
Sorry.
can make 2 points on that to answer. First of all, when we're acting on a residential transaction in our office, we will not close the transaction or act for that party without them getting title insurance. You can close without title insurance. We can do it the old school way. We could do all the searches, etc. We could get instructions from our clients to do that. But we basically, if our client really wants that and we can't talk them out of it, we say, sorry, we're not going to act for you because we really think you're better off with title insurance. Because aside from all the, the stuff that, that Teresa was outlining with the work order coverage and the survey coverage and all that stuff, but you get that fraud protection going forward. And that could be, you can buy your policy now and that maybe the fraud protection comes in 20 years from now. Like, who knows when that's going to be. So there's more benefits to having it than not having. So we actually refuse to act unless we're getting title insurance. Okay. Which doesn't happen that often because we generally convince people, like, Teresa knows we're the title insurance company's best salespeople.
It's right? Awesome. I love it. I will. Yeah.
So just sorry, Teresa, just to finish the point, we do get asked a lot of times for people that they may have bought before title insurance was around or that they bought without it. But we get asked, like, should we get title insurance? And the answer is yes. And Teresa sells policies all the time to people that not on a purchase transaction, they're just current homeowners, but it's still good. And maybe Teresa, you could explain why they should do that.
Absolutely. And you know what, I'm going to touch on both because they're both fantastic points that David brings up. So in the, in the situation where we talk about, elderly parents, I will use my parents as an example. My parents, are immigrants from Canada. They bought their house 30 years ago. They had the privilege of paying it off maybe 10 years ago. And there came a time when I came to realize that they didn't have title insurance. When they bought their house, it was not available. And I decided on behalf of my parents that they are getting title insurance. They are getting what we refer to as an existing home ownership policy. And so we work with a lawyer. You retain a lawyer. The lawyer will order on your behalf. I think there's also an opportunity for a homeowner to work directly with FCT, but you tell us what the value of your home is today, and we insure your home based on that. And it protects you for the same actual coverage as if you are getting the policy at the time that you bought your home. If there was a problem that is 35 years old and you bought your house 30 years ago and you're just getting a title insurance policy today, there's still actually coverage for that if there was a work order that was outstanding from then. But more importantly, it protects you for fraud coverage. In the case of my parents, I decided it was the best investment we could make on their behalf. And so I nudged my brothers and I said, let's pitch in and get mom and dad a title insurance policy. And now I know for as long as they own that home, they are protected. Two, you must consider a lot of our elderly parents don't go online, don't check their banking all the time, don't, sometimes don't even check their mail all that much. So they are an easy target for these fraudsters.
Sure.
Fraudsters know what they're doing and they might go after those homes
But
first.
did your parents get a
Sure.
good rate? Did they get a favorable rate? Did you
That's
shop
what I
it
was gonna
around?
say.
Did you shop it around
Yeah,
with all
I
the
would like
title
to
insurance
think.
companies?
I think there is something there for friends and family possibly, but I can't guarantee it. And
So,
also, I wanted to
Teresa, I
know-
just wanted to ask one quick question regarding that actually. Is that the cost of actually purchasing a title insurance at the time of closing versus going back after 30 years and purchasing it? Would it be substantially higher or would it be about the same for someone who's looking for it?
No, I think it's about the same. There is an administration fee if you go directly with FCT, and of course, the lawyer, based on the work that they have to conduct on your behalf, there would be a fee. But no, it's quite nominal. It is based on the value of your home, or in the case of a purchase, based on the purchase price, right? So there's a calculation we use to determine what the cost of your title insurance policy will be. But no, not very expensive at all. Arguably, maybe less than $1,000 based on the average value of a home today. Also, I want to
maybe
bring
just
up
explain, like on $1 million residential policy, approximately what would the
I would
the
say
title
about
insurance
$700 or $800. So we generally speaking, it's about just under $400 for up to $500,000 the value of the home, and then we add about 80 cents per thousand after that, up to $3 million. So if you use the calculator, you probably come up about $700-800 for about $1 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and on most residential purchase transactions, there's also a mortgage. So what you're actually doing is issuing two policies, one for the homeowner and one for the lender, and the homeowner is paying for both, but it's just a nominal increase to add the lender policy.
Yeah, it's really cool when you're getting both a homeowner and a lender policy. Typically on a purchase transaction, we bundle those policies. So the price that I quoted is generally for two policies. The first is what you pay the majority of the cost of the title insurance, and we bundle the second policy. We just add $50 to put on a second policy. If you're buying a home and you're getting two mortgages, a first and a second, then we would bundle a third policy for an additional $50. And that brings me right back to that point I wanted to make about the lender policy. So David made it very clear, there's two policies that we issue. One is the homeowner policy. We issue the homeowner policy, you have it for as long as you own your home. It is based on the purchase price. Two, though, you must consider over time, the value of your home will increase. And so the policy is set up so that there is up to a 200% inflationary value incorporated into the policy. So if you bought it $1 million and in 10 years from now, your house is worth $2 million, which is probably, the norm.
Yeah, that's
today.
the right calculation. Yeah.
Yeah, if you suffered a loss due to fraud up to $2 million, you're covered. So your policy stays in effect. The day you sell your home is the day you no longer have an interest in the home and the day you no longer have a title insurance policy. The lender policy, though, is fully independent. It is to ensure the lender, to ensure that they have a good and valid enforceable mortgage on that property in the priority that they instructed the lawyer, right? So if I am, for example, TD and I wanted to put a second mortgage on for $500,000, I would instruct David, he would buy a policy to put me, TD, in second position, making sure I have a good and enforceable mortgage on the property. The lender policy stays in effect for as long as you have a mortgage against the property. So let's say in the example of my parents, after 20 years, they were able to pay off their TD mortgage. TD was paid out, they discharged that mortgage, and their policy now becomes null and void. If that homeowner then chooses to refinance and get a new mortgage, then a new lender policy would be placed on that property at a separate premium. But
That's what the lenders would actually be asking for.
yeah, and that's the point exactly. The lenders ask for it. So, David said, although it's not mandatory to get title insurance, law firms strongly recommend it. It's in everyone's best interest. It offers more protection, it saves time, it saves money for the client. It's just invaluable. But also, over and above all of that, I'm going to say 99% of lenders will not give you their money unless you are arranging to have a title insurance policy on the property to protect them. So even if David was, if somebody was able to convince him not to get them a policy, generally speaking, he has to get one.
I would push for it. So I have a quick question to ask to that, Teresa. So I know that our viewers know that when you're taking a mortgage, they would be asking for home insurance, right? So what is factually the difference between the two, title insurance and the house insurance actually?
It is very different. And thank you for bringing that up, Sabia, because it comes up all the time. When I talk to people, they say, oh, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, who are you with? I'm with State Farm. Well, then I know obviously that is home insurance. So home insurance is there to protect you if you suffer a loss to damages to your home or to the contents of your home. If there's a fire or if something is stolen, that you could have content insurance. If there's a robbery or what have you, that is fire insurance. Title insurance
and liability too. If someone were to slip and fall, accident, that type of coverage.
Absolutely. Title insurance is there to protect you to, again, ensure that you have good and valid title to your property. So it's about, getting what you signed up for when you bought your home. So let's use an example of a shed, right? You have a garage, right? So you have a garage and you have water damage, you have a faucet in there and there's water damage and it's devastating. It's thousands of dollars for repair. If the damages are as a result of you leaving the faucet on, you call your home insurance, or if there's a fire, you call your home insurance. But if the damages were because that garage was built incorrectly and without a permit, and there could be a work order outstanding because of it, and the plumbing wasn't done correctly, then you would make a claim against your title insurance because it was as a result of a problem that existed because of improper work done prior to you owning your home. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much. Very much.
One big difference between the two also, it's completely different coverages, like Teresa explained so beautifully. But when you're buying title insurance, you're paying a one-time premium. You pay just when you buy the property, or if you didn't buy it, we were talking about, you can go and get a title insurance, but you pay a one-time premium. And if it costs you $500 or $700, whatever it is, that's a one-time premium. You have those protections throughout your ownership. Home insurance, as we all know, is something you pay annually. Like every year you're renewing your policy and you're paying another premium every single year. So there's a big difference there as well.
I know you get a lot of bang for your buck with title insurance. Actually, the longer you own your home, really, the more value you get out of your policy. But it's great coverage to have. And like we said, sometimes you will have had a policy in place for 20 years and with no problems. And it's when you're going to sell your home that those problems come up, right? You call David and you instruct him, you're selling your house, you're all excited, you're packing your boxes, only to find when he does a search that something is revealed that would impact the ability to sell your home. And so it's devastating for all the parties, right? I'm the seller. I want to sell my home. I'm ready to move on. The buyer wants to buy this house and is eager to move in. There's brokers, there's lenders, there's, realtors, and of course, lawyers who all are pulled into this problem. So we work together with them to try and solve it if there's coverage under the policy.
Right.
Well, and I can just make a general comment because I wanted to make sure that I got this in at some point in this. Another big difference that I find with the two types of insurance, and it's a lot is from personal experience and some from client experience. You make a claim under a home ownership policy. A lot of times the insurance company's main objective is to find a way not to pay. Like they're finding a way to get out of the policy or to limit their coverage and everything. And that's the insurance game. And you can respect it, but there's sort of an attitude towards that. Our experience with title insurance and with First Canadian Title Insurance in particular is that they're not looking to get out of the coverage. They're looking to find a way to cover our clients when we have a problem. And sometimes they go through it and they say, no, we don't have coverage here. They go through it and this is why it's not covered, but they'll do an exhaustive review of whether it should be covered or it could be covered, but they're not trying to get out of it. They're trying to find a way to cover it, to help our clients out. And I can tell you for a fact, not just because Teresa's on here right now, but we have had experiences where they've gone through a process and said, sorry, but there's no coverage here. This is why it doesn't, we don't have coverage for this, but we're going to do something anyways for your clients. We're trying to help you out. So we can't give them full coverage, but we can give them something to help them out with this issue. And they don't have to, but there's just an attitude, and it's part of the relationship we have, I think, Teresa, with the title insurance company, where you're looking to help us out as lawyers acting for our mutual clients and find a way to protect the clients if you can.
Absolutely. That is our main goal, right? To help those deals close and help people, when they're in a situation that, unbeknownst to them, thank you, David. I appreciate that word of confidence. And that is my experience. And I'm in business development, so I am not the person who makes those decisions, but I work very closely with our claims handlers and our underwriters. And I will say that is definitely the attitude. Let's see what we could find, right? So we look, over all our 37 covered risks to see, well, could coverage fall under this covered risk or possibly under that covered risk? And sometimes when we, have no choice but not to find coverage, we will, like David say, possibly work with the lawyer to see what we could do or offer coverage for a client going forward. So in the example of, you are selling your house and you find upon closing that there's a 40-year mortgage that was registered to somebody, eons ago. We know that mortgage is no longer in effect. It's been paid off, but we can't get it discharged. That lender no longer exists. And it's the day of closing, and the purchaser is a bit anxious because, well, I think it's been paid off. I like to think that nobody's going to call me out on this mortgage, but I don't know if I should buy this house. Well, we could often do at that, at that last minute, at the 11th hour, is say, hey, we're going to deal with this 40-year mortgage and get it discharged, or if we have to apply to the land registry office to get it, removed. But in the interim, we will insure you, the new buyer, against that known defect. We know it's there. It's not that we have to, but given the risk, we choose to insure over it. And so both parties are happy, right? The vendor could still continue on and close their deal, and the new home owner will know that it will get fixed and it will not create a problem for them going forward.
And that's a real important point, Teresa, because that allows us to get a transaction closed that may otherwise not close or close on time. And while we're talking about that, maybe we should talk a little bit about gap coverage, too, which facilitates closing on time. So you want to go through that?
Yeah, gap coverage is another great covered risk. We like to think that everything in a perfect world happens when it's supposed to happen. But we have seen situations where a deal we are not able to close the deal. How can I say this technically, right? At the land registry office to register that deed or that transfer and that mortgage. But we know, the money has been exchanged and everything is good. We do offer something called gap coverage on every residential policy. And it says, as long as you you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, lawyer, know that there is gap coverage if you are not, do not have the ability to close the deal on that day. We do encourage lawyers to reach out to us if there's a problem they're not able to register, but that's what that gap coverage is for. So that in the time that they are in receipt of funds and have everything in order, sign documents and what have you, and the time that they register, if something happens in between, let's say a fraudster sneaks in, or let's say at the 11th hour, you know, we have a power out, right? We've seen that happen more recently. Or, you know, people don't have Wi-Fi. We've seen this happen more recently, and there's an inability to close that transaction. We do offer that gap coverage. I remember a scenario back in, I think it was 2003, we had that blackout. Remember, on a great Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m., just before, you know, a busy Friday closing date, and nobody could close any deals on Friday. Now, do we leave thousands of people across Canada, you know, waiting with moving trucks and not being able to move into their home? No. We offered gap coverage. We said, we know that there's no possible way that you can close your deal. Rest assured that given the information you have today, and that until the time you can close your deal, we are protecting you, the homeowner, and you, the lender, and you're in a good position.
Yeah, and it's just sometimes we just run out of time, even on a typical day, because the registry office closes at 5 o'clock. You can't register after 5 o'clock, but we're still allowed to close our transactions up until 6 o'clock. Technically, even though we can't register, and sometimes the funds don't get transferred until between the 5 and 6 o'clock hours, but we can still close that way by closing in escrow. Everybody's happy. Both sides, the buyers got what they want, sellers got what they want, documents have been exchanged, the funds have been transferred, but we just can't register because the registry office is closed. So the title insurance company says, you know, go ahead, we'll consider this closed, like you've closed in escrow, and just register the next day that the registry office is open. Just register first thing, but we'll cover you in case somebody, you know, registers something before you get a chance to register. We'll deal with that. We'll take that risk. So that way we can close between 5 and 6 o'clock, and we can hand over keys to a buyer and they can get the stuff out of their moving van instead of having to wait the next day to actually get registered. So, you know, pre-title insurance world, we couldn't do things like that. So there's a huge benefit for that. One of the many benefits to title insurance.
Teresa, what does the terminology deal protection endorsement mean?
That's great. So deal protection endorsement is actually quite new. It is endorsed in a, it is an endorsement, tongue twister there, that we've added to our homeowner and lender policies on for residential property. So we issue policies for both residential and commercial. This endorsement is at this time only available on residential policies. And what it does is it protects the insured, whether it's the homeowner or the lender, if there's a like an errors and omissions problem that that is created at the law office. We know that lots of things can go wrong, mistakes can happen. There's some really complicated deals these days, and lots of hands-on deals. So if there was a mistake made that was not covered under the title insurance policy, you know, a clerk at a law firm missed something on the title search and then, you know, closed just the same without addressing that problem. Typically that is not covered under the title insurance policy because it was that information was available to them. It should have been addressed prior to closing. In that case, we pride ourselves in stepping in and working with whoever suffered the loss directly to pay them. It's not fully covered under the title insurance policy technically per se. So under this endorsement, we can offer coverage and work with the homeowner or the lender to recoup their losses.
Right. This is just a question that's popped up in my head, and I don't know if maybe it's completely irrelevant, but I'm just thinking that if two people have gone untitled to begin with,
yes.
And I have gotten the title insurance, so as a partner, right, or a spouse, or whoever may have bought the title insurance with me. and something happens, and one of the partners fraudulently takes over the title.
Yeah.
What happened? Am I covered in
That's
that?
a good, that honestly, that is a great question. And we've seen it happen, sadly. I remember many years ago, I would tell one of our fraud stories that I would share was about a husband and wife. And I'll share the story and it'll help you understand the response to that. There was a husband and wife. That wife went on a vacation for a pretty long time. I think she went to Europe to visit with her parents. Upon her return back to Canada, she went to go home. Her husband didn't pick her up at the airport, which was the first sign that something was going on. When she arrived home, she went to go put her key in the door, only to find that her key didn't work. After a minute or two of fumbling with the key, somebody opened the door who was not her husband, and they revealed to her that they had just purchased that home. So her husband, while she was gone, had fraudulently sold her the home with his girlfriend. The girlfriend had fake ID. They signed over all the documents. They accepted a pretty quick and fair price and closing date, and were out of there. And so she was on the hook. She was without a home. And so she was our insured, as he was. So we had to determine how we were going to fix this problem. So he was gone. We couldn't find him. We couldn't, he couldn't be arrested. There was nothing we could do to deal with him. What we determined at that time was she had a 50% interest in that home. And when we spoke to the new buyers and her, we came up with a solution. She no longer wanted to live in the home. She was done with it. I think it didn't carry as many great memories as she thought it might have. And the new buyers wanted to stay. So we gave her 50% of the value of the home, of the purchase price that those people had paid, and we covered her. So yes, absolutely. Fraud happens in many different ways. Pretty sad stories, but we're here to comfort people that if you have an insurance policy, regardless of who commits the fraud, if you are a victim of fraud, we are here to protect you.
Yeah, and if there wasn't title insurance, she'd be out of luck. Like, she could go and try and find her ex-husband and try and chase him down. If she can't find him, like, there's no way she's recovering that money.
No,
like, there's no chance. There's, so, there's a tremendous benefit. And look, the title insurance company, they're an insurance company, and they calculate these risks, and it's all built into the premiums, just like any other title insurance, because they know it doesn't happen on the majority of transactions.
No.
It's the, whatever the numbers
But it
are.
does happen.
But it does happen. And if it happens to you, you want to know you've got coverage for it, right?
Absolutely. The premium is so minimal. It's just, honestly, I think all day long we sell peace of mind.
Right.
So people know that.
Teresa, just going back to what you mentioned very quickly, that it's 200% of the purchase price that is insured. And we all know, it's best case or worst case scenario, your property is going 10% increase in value year to year. So in 10 years, you definitely have covered at least a minimum of double the value of the property is, it's doubled. But like what we saw in the last couple of years, sometimes there was a 30% increase in a month.
Crazy.
Right. So that 200 that percentage is covered very quickly. What happens if I've had my property for, I don't know, the last 27, 25 years, and the value has increased phenomenally?
Yes.
What happens to the rest of the value if I am hacked and there is a fraudulent activity on the title of my home?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Sabina, and so timely, because you're right. Most of us have the benefit of our homes being worth more than 200% of what we originally purchased for. So we do have an endorsement that is available on the residential title insurance policy. It's called a market value endorsement. Lawyers are able to select that endorsement for their clients. The client will pay a little bit more as a premium. It's a few cents again per thousand. And what it does is it eliminates that threshold of 200%, and it goes to whatever the value of the home is when you suffer the loss. I will say, having said that, it's great coverage. You can get it when you're buying your policy. You can update your coverage later. I've had a few people over the last few years saying, I have title insurance. I got it 5 years ago. I think I need more. And so they've upgraded and they pay that additional premium for just that market value endorsement. But keep in mind, not to suggest that, we don't want to sell it because it's great coverage, but generally speaking, most people don't lose up to 200%. From my experience over the 23 years that I've been here, if a fraudster, they could steal your whole home, and you're on the hook for that. But if they're putting on a mortgage, it's for a portion of it or what have you. Generally speaking, most people are good within 200%, but absolutely, if you are one of those people who've owned your home for a long time, you might look to obtain that market value endorsement. Or if you're buying a home and you feel that the value is going to increase exponentially, right? You're going to do upgrades, you're going to build an extension or what have you, you could buy that additional endorsement.
So I would say, I think maybe a new home, a brand new built home, would increase in value faster than a resale, just because of the area developing and all of that, right? We see the fastest growth in real estate in brand new homes. David, do you ever advise your clients to get the upgraded value insurance? Or is it the basic one that you advise your clients to get?
It's generally the basic one because, like Teresa said, if an issue does come up and they need the coverage for it, it's not usually the full value of the property that's the loss. It's usually, there was an issue, there was a defect, there was an encroachment, there was something that has to be fixed. And even in fraud situations, usually the fraudsters don't try and go to a lender and get 70 or 80% of the value, because it brings up too many red flags. You're saying, this is a mortgage-free property. I want to borrow 25% of the value because they want it quick and easy without a lot of questions. Like, what lender would say, oh yeah, it's worth $1 million, I'll give you 250,000. That's a great payday for a fraudster. So they're not looking to go high. So usually I think it's not necessary. I don't even know, I couldn't even answer the question. I don't know how often we actually get that endorsement. Maybe Teresa. I don't really know the statistics.
I would say, a majority of our policies are issued without it. But given what we know today, and if there is a circumstance where I mentioned before, as a buyer, you feel that you're in that situation, absolutely, it's great coverage to have and something we can keep in mind when we're dealing with our customers.
And it would be okay to assume that this insurance, the title insurance, lasts for the length of your ownership of the property.
Absolutely, for as long as you own your home.
Yeah, I know we've only got a couple minutes left, so just a couple other things in my head that I wanted to make sure that I got out. First of all, I don't know if you could see this.
Oh, what a nice shirt.
Look at this shirt that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see what's on there.
I love it.
Who doesn't like swag, right?
We like our swag, David. We like our swag.
Yeah, so I knew I dressed appropriately for today's podcast. So I just wanted to make sure I got that in there, and also just to say thank you to Teresa, because our firm and First Canadian Title, we go back a long time, right when title insurance came in. And then Teresa has been our rep for forever, really. And your whole career, pretty much, I think you've been our rep, or pretty much, and she's always available to us. And if it's, and she's in development and business development, but if you have an issue, a lot of times we call Teresa anyways, and she gets the right person for us to deal with. And anyways, we really enjoy the relationship. And David and I, when he's on this, we always talk about our firm's relationship with Sabiha's firm, like with Sutton Summit, because we also go back like 30 years. We have these long relationships, and it's so important for businesses like ours to have these type of relationships, because we do have an issue or do have a problem. It's very comfortable to say, hey, here's the story. what can you do? And sometimes you can do, and sometimes you can't. And sometimes it's Sabiha or David calling me up saying, you know, can you help us out with this? And it's not even something we're acting on, and we try and give them some guidance. And same thing, us going to Teresa and say, hey, we got this issue on here. You know, what, you know, please help give us some direction. So relationships are really, really important. So this is your opportunity, if you want, Teresa, to tell the blanket story. Or you don't have to.
I might not share the blankets. So I do. Yeah, no, I do try to show my appreciation for fantastic clients like Kormans on a few occasions. And I do my best to offer good, fun, appropriate gifts. And yeah, I tried to give a blanket and it just didn't work the way I meant it to work. But having said that, I thanks David for that vote of confidence. I have to say it's always been a privilege, and we really do think of you as a partner, right? Because we're working together for a common goal to offer a good experience to clients. We're not perfect, but we're doing our best, and things happen, and you know, we work to resolve them together. And you're like family now. And so I think that good things happen when people collaborate and do their best.
Absolutely. I totally believe in the village, and Kormans is definitely our go-to. David and Jonathan have, you know, forever. As long as I've been in the business, even prior to being broker of record, they were always my go-to, and you know, they always will be for as long as I think it can
and they're
go.
cool too. I like them because they're cool.
Wonderful. They're wonderful. They're so quick to respond. And they, you know, sometimes they're not the smartest questions that I throw their way, but you always like, you know, being in real estate. Honestly, there's so many nuances, Teresa. There's so many different things that come my way. We've more than doubled our brokerage in the last 2 years. So, you know, yeah, batting is my game now. Like I've become really good at it, and I need somebody to make sure that I have my, you know, full gear on. And Korman's seems to be my gear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Sabiha, you know what, you know, it's a little cliche, but there really is no silly questions. You'd be surprised every day. I learned something new about my industry, about yours, about.
Well, I need to protect myself and my realtors and their clients, right? So I need people like the Kormans to help me out with maneuvering through that.
Thank you, Sabiha. And sometimes we have the answers. Sometimes we have to turn to the title insurance company and say, hey, what's the answer here? Because, you know, they've got, you know, great resources there to figure out solutions for properties and problems. And sometimes they could actually physically fix them. And sometimes they say, you know what, it doesn't make sense to physically pay and fix this problem, but we're just going to give insurance policies and cover over it for future owners and things, which is a great solution too. In the meantime, we managed to get our deals done, and we all have the same common clients, whether you're the real estate agent, the lawyer, the title insurer, we're all acting for the same common client. It's really important for us to act together as a team and figure out solutions to whatever the issues are. So title insurance is a tremendous vehicle for helping us get these transactions closed on time and protecting our clients going forward. So Teresa, thank you so much for being on here today. It was just a pleasure to have you with us. And Sabiha, it's always a pleasure to have you hosting this. You know, I know, you know, David will be back next week, but we'll miss you. You always do such a good job.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
It was wonderful. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It was lovely meeting you, Teresa.
You as well. Take care of yourselves.
Right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.